Hey everybody, today we are going to learn a little bit more about modeling in Maya, and we're just going to explore some basic techniques that cover smooth mesh mode, polygon modeling, curve modeling, and converting models between one modeling format to another. Alright, let's get started. So you can see here I've opened up my default file in Maya, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to just start with some basic things. So when you're modeling an object, especially an organic object, we're going to go to our polygon menu here. You can also go create polygon primitives, polygon cube, and I'm going to draw out a rectangle, and I want to basically work with something very linear. I'm going to hit 5 on my keyboard right now, and that will show me shaded mode. And when I look at this, there's not really a lot going on. Let's put on wireframe unshaded. We can see it's a very basic model, and what we want to do with this model is we really want to kind of organically model a shape. So most shapes do not have flat edges such as what you see here. So I'm going to show you how to play with that a little bit. Now the tools we're going to use for this first method are found under the polygon subset menu in the menu set and in the edit mesh subset, as well as I've added most of those to my custom shelf, which you can do as well. And you may have remembered we did that in a previous lesson. Alright, well let's just work off of our menu here. So we're going to start by exploring some common tools. One of my favorite tools is the Insert Edge Loop tool, and this is a really great interactive tool. You can see it says click and drag on the edges. So if I click and drag, it's going to give me a all-around edge loop, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of put an edge loop here on the end and maybe a similar one on this end. So I'm not really making anything specific right now. I'm just trying to teach you guys the tools. So now that we have that, we could go to our WER modes or go over here to our toolbars and select them. We could begin to edit these shapes and to mold in, whatever we feel like is appropriate to mold in. Now, most of the times this is great, but a lot of the times we're going to create something that really needs to be a lot denser than a box. It needs to have a lot more curved edges, and we can do that in a variety of ways. One of the ways, the basic ways that we would make a curved edge or the illusion of a curved edge, I'm going to double click on this edge here and you can see that one little piece selected the whole edge loop, is to make a bevel. Now bevels are actually found here also in the edit mesh menu under the bevel attribute. I'm going to go ahead and hit that, and you can see it's not really as curved as I hope. Well, when I did that, it opened up my option box, which allowed me to add segments. Now what you can see happening here is it's doing its best to keep this not an n-gon, but you can kind of tell that we've kind of gotten to the world of n-gons here. So beveling is great. Use it as often as you can, but just remember that it could deem some n-gons here, especially with this face. And remember, n-gons are five-sided or more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided face. So I would have to deal with that later on by removing and deleting edges. So let's take a look at this. We get a somewhat curved segment. Still not as organic as maybe we thought. Now let's go to the other extreme. I'm going to hit Command Z, and that's going to take me back to this main view. I'm going to go to Object Mode and click Away and make sure everything is green when I select it. Now I'm going to hit, and you may have done this by accident, but I'm going to hit 2 or 3 on my keyboard. If I hit 2 or 3, you notice you get these weird kind of shapes. It kind of morphs your shape into a kind of ugly, I don't even know what this is, deodorant can. And what we're going to do now is we're going to learn about smooth mesh mode, which is a really actually cool tip for organic modeling. Now if I hit 1 on my keyboard again, it goes back to our original view. If I hit 3, you can see it goes to what it would look like if I smoothed it. Now I'm going to do a quick render here up on the render current frame button, and you're going to notice it still renders out like the original object I made. So this is just a preview. This is an illusion. Even though we see this being built, it's not really the accurate amount of detail that's going to be there. So how do we utilize this? Well, if I hit the 2 key on my keyboard, that's the number 2, it gives me basically this box. You see how it's kind of giving me the box? And this will allow me to use these tools. For instance, the Insert Edge Loop tool. So if we add another edge here, you can see we can put one in here. It starts to kind of play around with the density of this object. And I'm going to do the Same tool here. And I'm going to start working on smoothing this out and getting some straight lines. So now you can see if I hit 3 again, we have a pretty organic object, and if you wanted to make maybe a stapler or a pencil sharpener, this would be a good place to start, because remember, in reality, what your object looks like is this. Doesn't look much like that. So okay, how do I utilize this in the final kind of outcome? Well, there's a lot of tools you can use with 2 mode or 3 mode. One of the coolest tools is the crease editor. I love this crease editor. This is really awesome. Let's go ahead and try to attempt to do this on a crease. So I'm going to take this edge and I'm going to hold shift, and I could have just double clicked, but I am a glutton for punishment and I do things the wrong way sometimes. There we go. There we go. We're going to take this crease right here, and I'm going to go to edit mesh, and let's see the crease tool. And it says select the components and then drag the middle mouse button out. Now what that will do is pretty amazing. It will give us this kind of crease, almost like it just kind of has fallen off the edge of the piece. So if I go back to 3 mode here, you can see what it did there. It's not the prettiest looking thing by any means, I'm just doing the extreme, but sometimes in objects you'll have organic going to flat, and that helps. Alright, so I would go about using 2, and I would add more edge loops. Under edit mesh, I could use my interactive split tool and add some polygons that way. I could add divisions by selecting faces. I can still extrude in this mode as well. For instance, if I want to maybe extrude this shape upward, I can go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to hit the little center pivot thing and pull it out this way. I have, again, no clue what I'm making. Maybe I'm starting to model a car or something as this that kind of nature, organic nature, and I can pull that out and basically kind of work my way up. All right, now when we're doing this, it's imperative to remember that this is an advanced modeling technique. So sometimes, though it seems like this is the way to go, if you don't understand how these shapes move, and when you go to smooth it, you're going to get a lot of n-gons. You can see this is really what it looks like that I just modeled. Nothing very fancy, but when I hit that smooth mode, it's pretty darn ugly. So if I want to continue to work in this smooth mode, and maybe I'm modeling a mouse for a computer or whatnot, I need to convert this, because again, when it renders, it still looks really blocky. So to do that, to get that organic shape, I'm going to convert this. And I'm not going to convert it to another NURB or a volume primitive. I'm actually going to convert this from smooth mesh preview to polygons. Now when you do that, you're going to notice immediate change. Okay, first thing is you get a lot more faces. With a lot more faces, you get a lot more issues. Now again, if you're not comfortable with topology, topology is the flow of these edges, you will have a nightmare trying to get this to do what you want. Now before I go and play with this and add more to it, I'm going to go to my smooth face. That's the function that the modify convert smooth mesh preview to polygons actually made. So now what you can see is I can actually lower my divisions, and this is where I started, but I can kind of go halfway down. By default it goes to 2. I could crank this up, probably crash my Maya while I'm doing it, but as high as, 4 times. When it's this green, it's not worth it. That's too many polygons. So I'm going to go to something like this, and I'm going to kind of play with the settings in here, and you can see you have boundary rules. You can play around with all of these. If it doesn't like it, it will just crash. So make sure you save. You can see right here it's working pretty good. We can play with some division per levels. That's kind of a neat one. Divisions per face, that will kind of also change it. So you have a lot of different options, whether roundness, again, is a great one, which doesn't really affect mine. You can see the push strength really affects it. Either way, exponential, linear will get you the good result. Now, when you're done doing that, I highly suggest you do edit, delete all by type history or delete by type history, and that will get rid of those functions. Now, once you do this, you can't really go back. So just keep in mind what's going on with this, And I can still go back to smooth mode and do some stuff, but it would continue to smooth it. So if you really want that organic shape, go for it. Now, where's this play a huge part? Well, you saw in the first demo that we did, we were creating, in one of the earlier videos, we were creating kind of a planter of some sort. And with that planter, you can see what I can do is I'll hit 2 here, edit mesh, insert edge loop tool. I'll start creating that kind of organic planter shape that, or bullet shape, whatever, or trash can that I really, really liked here. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to just use all my modes, right click to select my faces and all that, and kind of make something fun here. Now, again, guys, this takes tons of practice. This did not come overnight. Even just the ability to spin around and select things at free will, edit mesh extrude here, it takes practice. I spent hours upon hours of sitting in front of my TV with my computer on my lap trying to figure out what in the world, how in the world this stuff is done and how to kind of make it better. So you can see now that I have a nice object. Maybe I'll grab the face in the middle here. Maybe we'll do a add divisions, and then maybe we'll do one more add division. Now, instead of doing that, I can always subdivide it with my attribute editor, which is fine. And let's grab some of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's grab that. Pull it downward. That looks pretty good. I don't know what I'm making, guys, but you guys get the idea, I hope. All right, so we have that. I'm going to hit 3 so I can kind of see it without. Yeah, I got some issues. You know, I have definitely some issues with this kind of crease along the top, so I'm going to play with that real quick and kind of go here, and maybe I can get this to fix with that crease tool. So I'll go through tedious tasks. It's alliteration, and it's fun to say tedious task, but that is Maya for you. Let's go to the crease tool. Let's see what happens if we play with this. Well, that kind of pulls it in. That's not really doing what I want. So let's try maybe extruding out some more. So let's grab the faces. I undid, went to face mode. And let's see what this does. Go to edit mesh, extrude again. That could probably help. I'm going to center my pivot here and kind of play with this slightly, just to kind of get a lip going on here. Let's try that. Let's go out here. Starting to get there. It looks pretty good. I don't know what this shape is, but it's some sort of weird. Looks like the thing from Mario Brothers, doesn't it? Like the bullets. You guys are going to correct me on this, I know, but chomping. I don't know. All right. So when I get it to a point I want, I'm going to hit 3, and if I wanted to convert this, remember when it renders, if I go to my render select, it actually doesn't look too bad, but it looks like, you know, it looks like this. It looks like a standard, you know, government issue planter. If I want it to be more organic, I would do my modify, I want to modify the object, smooth mesh preview to polygons. It will do that. I go to my smooth face, which is also found in my channel box right here, so you can see that. And I like to keep my divisions at about 1. That allows me, if I still want to do some modeling, that allows me some more wiggle room, so to speak, to kind of play with that. So that's a good start. You can see I have some areas of ugliness or oogliness, as I would say, that definitely could use more work. But if you want a organic object, definitely the way to go would be to use these techniques. All right, so that's how you use smooth mesh mode. It may help, it probably will help at some point a lot of you guys. All right, another thing we got to do is we got to deal with organic shapes like cords and things like that. A lot of you are going to pick a electronic device, whether it's a MacBook Pro or a charger or a camera with a charger. So you're going to want to make a cord. Now, there are ways to do this. You know, we can create a polygon primitive. Let's go ahead and create a cylinder. There it is. And I'm going to hit spacebar here. I'm going to go, first I'm going to draw it so you guys can see it. Maybe go to side view here. And if I take this, I can extrude this. I can use my extrude button, and you know, if I have a picture of a cylinder, I can start, I'll hit G to repeat my last command. That's G as in guy. And I can start like extruding and, you know, making a cord. That's all fine and dandy. But again, you don't want to spend hours upon hours creating this cord that, you know, you could do in a couple seconds. So let me show you a few techniques on how to do that. Before we get into that cord, what we're going to need to understand is curves. Now, under Create, we have NURBS, non-uniform rational B-splines, polygons, and volume primitives. We've been focusing on polygons. NURBS are actually like paper mache, and they're made of curves. Now, we've learned in the last lesson that we can convert different types of meshes, which is great. So we know we could probably convert one to another or vice versa. So what I'm going to do here is let's start with one of the easiest tutorials out there, and I want you guys to follow along. I want you guys to go to your side view. So hit spacebar, navigate to your side view. If you can't see those views, you have this 4-view mode here to the left under the panel layout portion of Maya. That's where you're going to want to go. And I want you to create a CV curve. Now here's the trick. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to kind of zoom out so you guys can see. It's going to be a tricky one here, but I'm going to find somewhere to click, and I'm going to start just clicking. I'm going to make a line. I'm going to make 4 dots, dot, 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 dot. That's 5. If I learned to count, it would be great. All right, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a few more, and I'm going to kind of make what you would think is maybe a silhouette of a wine glass. So let me zoom out here, and I'll show you what I'm doing here. I'm just clicking. I'm not clicking and dragging. It's not like Illustrator. You just click every 3 dots, kind of gives you a cool shape. You know what? Maybe I'll do like a martini glass. I don't know. Click down, down. That's good right there. Let me click away and show you what I have. So I have this shape. All right, not the prettiest shape in the world, but what I'm trying to get to here is what we can do is actually create a shape from this. Now, if I go to perspective mode, what you'll see is that if I hit render, this does not render, this does not exist in our world until we assign a mesh to it. So spacebar one more time. And let's go ahead and play with surfaces. Now, you won't find surfaces in the polygon menu. There is really no fast way to create a polygon from this curve within this menu set. What we're going to have to do is go to the surfaces menu set, which is right beneath the polygons menu set. Now, when we go to the surfaces menu set, we have a couple of options. We have curves. We could edit those curves. But the main one is we wanted to create a surface. And to do that, we have a few options. One's revolve, one's loft, one's planar. And I'm going to go over these individually here in a second after we make our wine glass. We're going to kind of get the bang for the buck right away. We're going to do a revolve. So with the wine glass or the silhouette of this martini glass, whatever you want to call it, selected, I'm going to go to revolve. But most of you clicked it already. If you did, hit Command Z. What I want you to do is to go to the little option box. Now in this option box, first reset your tool, edit reset, and I want you to go and where it says polygons, because we're going to stick within polygons as we do stuff. That's it. Just change output geometry from NURBS to polygons. If it says something different, please feel free to reset your settings. I'm going to hit revolve, and what do you know? I have a pretty cool martini glass. Now what did that do? Well, basically what it did was it took that shape, and it took that, let me grab the shape here if I can find it, there it is. It took this and it revolved it, it repeated it, and it built, it almost was like a 3D printer. It built items around it. And what's really great about this is still attached to the cup. As long as I don't delete the history, if I go and right click, if I grab that curve so to speak, let's grab it there, and I right click and I say go to my control vertice of that curve, and I want to play with, you know, how this curve looks a little bit, watch this. I can pull this out, I can pull that curve down, and now I have the wine glass. You have chosen wisely, right? It's from a movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you haven't seen that, look that movie up. All right, so there's my kind of glass now, which is really cool. It's still attached to the curve. Now, a couple other options I have is to clean up the geometry. Right now, it's all triangulated, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I'm going to just show you some other options. Let's go to our attribute editor and navigate to the NURBS Tessellate button. Now in this NURBS Tessellate button, NURBS Tessellate 1 in this case, we have some options. We have tessellation options. Tessellation is essentially the way the lines are appearing on the object. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the advanced one because, you know what, there's no time for simple. We got to go straight to advanced. And I'm going to go to polygon type. Under polygon type, I'm going to switch it to quads. Now, you probably hear an alarm going off in your head going, oh my god, those are n-gons, there's more than 4 sides, we got to fix it. We will. We have different ways to fit these. One of them is count, which is one of my favorites, especially if you have a limit to your polygons. The other is fit, as you saw. We'll just kind of fix it. Not necessarily the cleanest way. And then you have general, which seems pretty bad, and then CVs, which isn't exactly the best. Now, for each one of these formats, all right, each one of these that you see, you can see count and so forth, we're going to have a submenu for it. So count, we have a count menu. So we can change that. We can make it more dense or less dense. So that's a cool one. We have fit. We have a fit menu, and you guys can play around with this some, and you can see there it is. If I click it enough, it will actually fit it into being a really nice piece. We have general. Now this is the tricky one. This one always looks bad, but this one gives me the best results. So if I'm going to have a general attribute here, what I really want to do is I want to change some of the settings within that in the general tessellations. And I go and I put my U type, which is up and down, or excuse me, left and right, to per isoparm. So you can see it made left and rights. And then I put my V type to per span isoparm. So I change these to the same thing. Now what does that mean? Well, that's a fancy way of saying for every line, put 3 lines there. So you can see if I crank this up, I can get it to be pretty dense in either direction that I really want it to be. I like this. I usually, again, go to the very bottom of U type, very bottom of V type, and you do per span number of isoparms. And isoparm is, in a NURB object, is basically just that invisible edge loop. So if I go ahead and click away here, actually we'll just do a quick render. There you go. I got a nice looking goblet here. So those are a way to loft a material. Now what are some other ways? Well, if I go to my NURBS tool here, and I know we're in NURBS, not polygons, and I create a circle. Let's draw that out. I have a curve. That curve is, again, an invisible circle. It doesn't do much. I can go and right click. I can mold it. I could make a paint palette. I don't know what I want to make. But it allows me to kind of edit that shape. So what I'm going to do is we're going to play with surfaces again. And now if we revolve this, it's going to look like this. It's going to look like a really weird shape. I don't know what that's doing. That's not my cup of tea. If I loft it, well, it doesn't really do anything again. So loft really is meant for 2 objects. So I'm going to hit Command D or Edit Duplicate. So Command D is easier. And if I hold Shift and highlight both of them, I can do a loft. And there you go. Pretty cool. Now, the whole time I probably should have gone to my option box, made sure I was set to polygons. But that will give me a nice unique shape, which could help us with our chord problem in a few minutes here. Now, the other one is planar, and let me show you planar here. Planar is just going to do exactly that. Just going to create a plane on top of it. You may need this for something. I'm guaranteeing you will throughout the semester. So planars helps as well. Again, all of these have NURBS tessellates in which you can really play with the count. You can play with the fit. You can play with quads or triangles, depending if you want them to be non-n-gon, and go from there. All right? So that really helps. Now, how do we use these in conjunction with making a chord? Well, let me show you. I'm going to go back to side view. And this time, I'm going to create a CV curve by itself. And I'm going to just kind of draw what I think is going to be going straight up in the air, but that's okay. Would be a curve. Or a chord. Curve of a chord, I meant to say. So we'll kind of go in there. Dun-dun-dun. All right, cool. There's my chord. All right. Now, what can I do? Well, what I can do, I don't know why this is showing up, but what I can do here is I can add that NURBS circle. Okay, and I'm going to drag it on the grid. And I'm going to hold down my V key. And what that will do is that actually allows me to snap to things. So let me show you a trick here. I'm going to right click on my curve and I'm going to go to Control Vertex. I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to grab, secondly, my circle. I'm going to hold V, and you see how it kind of snapped down to the bottom there? I'm going to show you that one more time in super slow motion. Click on the, I'm just not going to say it in slow motion, but click on the curve, go to Control Vertex. That's fine. Then hold Shift and highlight that second NURBS circle you made. So you have a curve and a circle. hold the V as in Victor key down, and push your middle mouse button in and just drag it all over the screen, and it will snap to that eventually. I'm holding the V as in Victor key and the middle mouse button on my mouse down. All right, now I'm ready to go. So you can kind of probably see where I'm going to go with this. I have this, I'm going to hold shift and grab that, okay, in that order. Now I want to play with surfaces. What can we do? Well, one of them is extrude. Let's see what that does. Let's go to our option box. Let's make it a polygon. Let's hit extrude. Well, not too shabby. I mean, it ain't perfect. It's not a circle, but it's something that we can deal with. So you can see we also have a NURBS tessellate. We can also do the whole isoparms and all that. There they go. You guys see how they're kind of clicking into place? So that's really, really nice. We can also play with other settings, but overall, it gives us a pretty nice chord, doesn't it? All right, so let me show you that one more time. I'm going to hit delete. I grab the circle, the NURBS circle I made, and the curve of just the standard CV curve I made. And I'm going to do surfaces, extrude, option box, and I'm going to just go and hit extrude. Go through and change some of my settings. Change them up. There you go. That looks pretty cool. There's other settings in here I could tweak. I'm not necessarily going to because I like the way it is. There's nothing really wrong with it too. But we can, you can click on these anytime you want if you really want to get something to be actually really smooth. You can do that. Now when we render it, let's take a look. Yeah, we have a nice little chord. All right, so that's one way. Another cool way is this, and this is kind of the tricky way. I told you that you can't use the polygon menu. Well, I lied to you. All right, so I'm going to delete the little circle. Bye-bye, little circle. Okay, I just want this curve. And I'm going to go ahead and really quickly delete by type, and I'm going to delete my history here. All right, so here I go. What I'm going to do is go back to the subset menu of polygons, big change here, polygons, and I'm going to create a polygon primitive, and we're going to do a cylinder, if I can find it. I'm going to do this, and actually, you know what I want to do? I want to get in the mix here because I want to drag that on my grid so I can see it. Cylinder, there we go. Good with me. I got some changes to make. So under poly cylinder in our channel box, I want the caps to be actually 0. I just want it to be 1 cap. See? I know that sounds kind of weird. But what I can do now is the same thing. I can actually snap this to that. So I'm going to hold that and I'm going to pull it down. I'm going to try to just get it to come right out of the middle. It looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but ready? Watch this. This is going to be really cool. I'm going to grab, and it may not work on the first try, but I'm aiming for it to work. I'm going to grab the face of the polygon cylinder, hold shift to add to the selection. I'm going to add the curve, and I'm going to use extrude. Now, you're probably going, okay, that didn't work. You failed us. Get out of here. I'm turning this video off. Well, remember, Maya's tricky. Maya, look, it looks like it didn't work at all. It connected one point to the other. But what Maya has is tons of attributes, doesn't it? One of which it created was polycylinder 1, which has a subdivision's height axis, which, we play with that, and it looks all right. Oops. Go back to the extrude here. Command Z. So we'd have to play with those. So let's do it one more time. Grab this. So hit Command Z too many times. Go back, and we have a height and we have a width, and then all of a sudden you can see, okay, well that's moving it. Still not doing what we want. We have our caps. We can, round the caps if need be. But one of the things we have too is an extrude face. Now, under extrude face, we have divisions. Ready for this? This is where it's going to work. Okay, you have to make the sound, otherwise it's not fun. I can add divisions, and look what that did. It went from this to forming itself around the curve. And it does it rather quick. Now, you can do this with a cube, you can do this with whatever you want, but that's another cool way to get a chord. And it's actually really nicely built with the chord. All right, so that is one way to do that. So one more time, let's go back, all the way back in time here. Grab the face, right click, go to face, click on that, hold shift. I'm holding the shift button and I'm marking over the curve. Edit mesh, extrude. Poly extrude face, I'm in my attribute editor, see, if I click on that, and then I add divisions. Okay, now I think I can add more. Yeah, it goes above, you just have to type into it. After a while though, I mean, I'm pretty okay with this. But there it is, all right? So that's another way to kind of play around. The last thing I want to talk about is inserting holes into objects. This is one of the biggest kind of debatable subjects in all of 3D modeling. We want to be very aware of our topology or the way our edges look, so there's no n-gons and we only use quads and triangles. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit F for focus here to show the grid. I'm going to go ahead and create a plane. Not an airplane, but a polygon plane. And I'm going to go ahead and draw a single plane. Now, if I want to chop a hole in this, let's say I want to cut a circular hole, I could create, in addition, a cylinder. And we're going to make this as easy as possible, kind of Sesame Street style here. We're going to cut this hole in the cylinder, you know, we're going to use it as a cookie cutter, and this is our dough, is the plane. So what I'm going to do is use a function called booleans. Booleans, or booleans. I don't know why beef bouillon is a cooking term. I call them booleans. So what I'm going to do is I have union, difference, and intersection. Well, what this means, this is all about how we select the object. So I'm going to select the floor, I'm going to hold shift and select the cylinder, and I'm going to do boolean, and I'm going to do difference. Okay, so what you can see happened is pretty neat. What happened is it actually merged these two together. And you can see there's a little itty bitty kind of odd hole here. And if I deleted some of these faces, delete this half, I'd have a hole. Now what's the problem with this though? Let's go to vertice mode. Ooh, it is one giantly ugly n-gon. N-gon times 1,000. It is terrible. So how do we clean this up? Well, the best way to clean this up is to figure out a clean way to do this, and I'll show you that in a second. But one way to do it is to use the cleanup function. So I'm going to do mesh cleanup, so I need to select this first, make it green. Mesh cleanup, and I'm going to reset my settings so you guys can see. I want to fix the tessellation so any faces with more than 4 sides will be fixed. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cleanup, and I get, it's ugly, but I get a cleaned up version of this geometry. So that's how you help. Now, some of you will have to add more than one hole. At that point, it is very dependent on the number of faces. When I highly suggest not to use booleans and only use them in extreme cases, and that's just my personal kind of opinion. There's no decent modeling from them. But if you have to use them, make sure that you're using them with multiple faces. So I'm going to go to my attribute editor here and go ahead and find the subdivisions and kind of raise them up. So I usually add multiple faces. That helps. Now, if I want to do this the classic way without booleans, it's a little more time consuming, but it's really the right way. I create a circle and I just build it myself. I'm going to put this in the middle as a template. And then I'm going to use my interactive split tool. And I start by making a diamond. You guys kind of get where I'm going with this, and I'll show you kind of all the way through. There we go. So once I have my diamond in there, then I get my interactive split tool again. And I start cutting this piece. I'm going to hit G. G is a great way to redo the tool you just did. There we go. Grab the vert. Start making what will look like, eventually when we're done, that cylinder. You can see it's a slow, methodical process, but in the end, it is really, really helpful. There you go. You can start doing that for the beginning modeler, because it will really teach you how to model and it will really help you. These are, again, subjective techniques. You know, you may have your own way. If I hit delete, I can start getting that circle. You know, I haven't added nearly as many divisions here, but you can see it's starting to come to play. So that's something that you really want to look into if you're going to do this for if you're really interested in modeling. And really, it comes down to just understanding every little line and every little movement. And you know, I'm not sitting here going, I'm going to move this up. I'm not doing that. I'm just moving it in one direction. And again, that takes practice. So eventually, more divisions I add, the better I'll have these kind of divisional breaks going on in here. All right, so those are Booleans. And that is something, again, when you're done, you want to do delete by type history, and that will kind of clean things up. So hopefully you've learned some pretty neat modeling techniques today. Maybe they'll help you with your object. Maybe they'll just get you started on kind of discovering some new ways to model. And we will catch you next time.